What's going on, everybody? My name is Johnny Bannon, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Trepa Technologies. And in this video, we're going to be covering Domain 2.1 of Security Plus SY0-701, which goes over common threat actors and their motivations. So for example, why would an insider threat steal IP and sell it to one of our adversaries? Well, we're going to find out. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to get my face out of the way here, and let's get started on the lecture. So again, this is going to be going over Domain 2.1, common threat actors, and motivations. So first, let's go over our objectives here. So again, we're going to go over the different types of threat actors and their attributes. And this is what the Security Plus exam, wants us to go over. This is what they consider all the threat actors, okay? And then their motivations, we're not going to have a single slide for that. Like, we're not going to have slides going over every single one of these motivations, because we're going to talk about it when we talk about the threat actors, right? So in our actual slides, I'm going to have their motivations and why a threat actor does what they do. Why threat actors do what they do, right? And the thing about threat actors, guys, is like this nation state here. You're going to hear that sometimes be called advanced persistent threats. Organized crime may have a different term depending on who you're talking to. Shadow IT may not be the actual term used for people bringing in their, their Netgear switches, thinking it's going to speed up the internet. These are very technical terms used for the exam, okay? So you may not always hear this exact terminology in the workplace. However, insider threats are very common. Advanced persistent threats is really common. APTs in the cyber world, and those are backed by nation states. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is a nation state. So their description. They're actors that are sponsored or directed by national governments, and they engage in cyber espionage, sabotage, and warfare. So a nation state in the context of cybersecurity and threat actors, it refers to a country's government or its sponsored groups engaging in cyber activities. So sometimes we'll have nation state teams, otherwise known as advanced persistent threats. I want to write that out because it's very important, and I'm surprised they didn't put this in this section. APTs, because even when you look at cybersecurity frameworks, APTs are always the things that we look at. Like in the MITRE framework attack matrix, it discusses different advanced persistent threat teams. So again, advanced persistent threat is what that stands for. And these are going to be the sponsored groups, the nation state sponsored groups, these advanced persistent threat teams. Persistent. My English isn't as good as my tech, threat. All right. So some of their definitions and characteristics. So government involvement. Nation state actors are either part of a government's official agencies or are non-governmental groups sponsored by the government. So we think of official agencies, think of like our own NSA. I have no idea what goes on in there, but that's probably where our red teams would be, or maybe it's in a different compartmentalized section of our government, but definitely we'll have red teams. Just like China, Iran, and Russia have red teams, as they are our near-peer adversaries. They have strategic objectives. So their activities are usually aligned with the broader strategic, political, military, or economic goals of their nation. So China's a great one at this. They actively engage in influence campaigns. You could say that TikTok is their best one, right? Because they have control over a major social media outlet that is consumed by our youth, and their algorithms are set by them, right? Now, this can be debated depending if you like looking at them testify to Congress, a known state actor as a CEO. But anyways, this is about Security Plus, not about politics. They're also highly sophisticated. So nation-state actors often possess advanced capabilities in cyber warfare. And the reason being is because they have the resources. They're able to just focus and hone in on their craft. And typically, advanced persistent threat teams will have their specialties. So like the Sandworm team, which is, depending who you ask, they are Russian sponsored. Sandworm team. They attack electrical sectors or like ICS systems, right? Industrial control systems. Sabotage. So they engage in sabotage. They might engage in cyber sabotage to disrupt critical infrastructure of other nations like power grids, communication networks, or financial systems. So you think about the broad scope of warfare now and the multi-domains that it's fought in. When Russia was going to invade Ukraine, one of the major indicators was the increase of cyber attacks. especially against their critical infrastructure. Because again, as if you're planning an invasion, what better way to get ahead than taking out of the electrical sector of that nation, right? So Ukraine and like our intelligence agencies could see an invasion was possibly happening, not just from the logistical movements of Russia, but also on their cyber crime, to increase the cyber attacks. Influence operations. So kind of already talked about that with China. And then national security. So nation-state cyber activities pose significant threats to national security, potentially leading to diplomatic tensions or even conflicts between countries. So that's coming on like the attacked perspective, right? When these nation-state actors actually engage in cyber espionage, it creates tension amongst near-peer adversaries. And then economic impact. So these attacks can have great economic impacts. Remember when our pipeline was attacked in the US on the East Coast? That affects the economy because people react, they take up all the gas, then we can't travel, and a lot of our economy is based in commerce, right? And what we mean by that is not only is our shipping, our supply chains affected, but also just regular retail. We can't drive to the store to buy things if we have no gas. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is an unskilled actor. So I've never heard anyone say, oh, that we have unskilled attackers. It's usually always script kiddies. It's just fun to say, right? So script kiddies. These are individuals that have limited technical skills and typically will use pre-written software or scripts to launch attacks. Pre-made tools, right? So I have Kali Linux in here, of course, because it's kind of unfair to not mention Kali Linux, the OS that has all the prepackaged cyber attack and defense software, right? A script kiddie's, messiah. Characteristics of a script kiddie: lack of advanced skills. They just have a basic understanding and they use hacking tools. Their motivation. So their motivations can vary, but often include a desire for recognition within certain communities. It could just be boredom. It could just be curiosity, right? It could not be any specific agenda at all. And then the targets, it's anyone. They don't have specialized targets. They often target low-hanging fruit. So systems that will have well-known vulnerabilities, but they really don't have a sector in particular they attack. That's just kind of the nature of it, right? They're just unskilled. They don't have a true purpose other than their own self-interest. All right, a hacktivist. So a hacktivist, or a hacker and activist, they promote political agendas, social change, or ideological beliefs. They often target organizations they see as opposed to their goals. So their motivation is political or social activism. You can see down here, I put in here like Anonymous, right? They are like probably the biggest hacktivist group. And this is just a funny one, poking fun at Jeff Bezos, right? But that's what hacktivists are. They are skilled attackers or actors, but they are motivated by their morals or their activism. An insider threat. So depending on who you ask, and according to some studies, insider threats make up at least half or a little bit under half of a lot of the cyber incidences happening in the modern day enterprise. So an insider threat is a security risk that originates from within the targeted organization and involves individuals who have current or former authorized access to the organization's assets, such as employees, contractors, business partners, or vendors. So kind of taken away from the dramatic theme, right? Like an insider threat's taking intellectual property or exposing corruption within the organization. Sometimes this could be as simple as a disgruntled employee, someone who got affected by layoffs and our offboarding was horrible and they got fired before their permissions were taken away. That is a key indicator of an insider threat, right? Which is why our offboarding is so important. Now we get to the dramatic sense. People that want financial gain or want to commit espionage against their government. So in the military, I worked in the government before starting my company. We get taught about insider threats all the time, and it's a serious, very serious thing. Recently, so I'm recording this in 2024, maybe 6 to 8 months ago, there was 2 sailors that got caught giving information to the Chinese government. More than likely, they're going to get 20 to 30 years in prison because of it. So insider threats can be very dramatic. They can be very drastic. They can affect your organization. And the thing about them is they're hard to detect. Now, there are some key indicators, like especially from the government's perspective. If somebody is having financial trouble, if they're going through a divorce, if there was a recent tragic event in their life that's making them think about their morals or their ethics, or they all of a sudden have some ideological reasons. That could all be key indicators of an insider threat. And then, of course, the disgruntled employee is a big one in the private sector. Organized crime. So these are groups engaging in illegal activities for profit, using cyber means to commit fraud, theft, or extortion. Their motivation is purely financial gain. Then shadow IT. So something I do like to talk about a lot, because this can be malicious or very innocent. So shadow IT refers to information technology systems and solutions built and used inside organizations without approval. So often you just see this as an employee trying to just streamline their workflow by using third-party apps they may have used in the past, or they use on their personal computer, on your enterprise resources. Which is why like zero trust architecture is such an important thing now, because of our hybrid enterprise with remote workers, cloud-based services, on-prem services, all working together in this nice mesh. Shadow IT becomes an actually bigger threat because of the freedom we give our users, right? So shadow IT, there's really no the motivation is never truly malicious. It just actually is kind of an indicator of failure on the IT operations or dev teams, because your employees feel like they're not getting the right solutions with the seamless interface. So what I mean by that is they're trying to go outside the organization's approved IT because they feel that they have another product that they can be more productive in, right? So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship where your IT teams, your dev teams need to support your employees so that this doesn't happen. So the cybersecurity team, what I always talk about, has to make sure that the A in that CIA triad availability is important, because it will lead to stuff like this. Well, maybe not Steam Deck, right? But with people trying to use Google Drive, because maybe the file sharing you have on your enterprise just is barbaric, right? Maybe it's only on-prem, and that makes it hard for remote workers. Okay, so attributes of actors, internal/external. So this is just saying that the threat actors can kind of be divided into two major categories. Internal and external. So internal just describes anything that comes from inside the organization that causes a cybersecurity incident. Of course, we think insider threats, right? But also this could be someone opening up like a phishing email. So it kind of gets a little blurred lines right there, right? That phishing email may have came from an external source, but it was opened up internally by your employee. It wasn't actually a hacker getting past your perimeter, right? And hacking into your vulnerable web server. So kind of just things that happen from within inside the organization. External actors are those outside the organization and generally have no authorized access. So this is just anything that is really hacker-ish, right? So this is the advanced persistent threat teams. These are hacktivists. These are script kiddies that are coming from outside your organization. They don't have an account. They got no permissions, and they're able to hack or exploit your systems. Resources and funding. So depending on what kind of actor you are, that's going to determine your resources and funding. So obviously, advanced persistent threat teams and nation states and organized crime groups, they have significant resources and funding, which is why their attacks are more sophisticated and more sustained. So what do we mean by sustained? So essentially, like let's say we're doing threat hunting and we notice that there's been data exfiltration for 3 to 6 months happening underneath our nose, right? On our enterprise. That's probably a safe assumption that was an APT team, because only an advanced persistent threat team backed up by a government with plenty of resources, time, and effort could be that sophisticated, right? Now, unskilled attackers and hacktivists, they have more limited resources, because usually this is of their own fruition, right? This is somebody wanting to be a script kiddie just for fun, or a hacktivist taking on a social activism on their own through hacking or through cyber attacks. Okay, then the last thing we're going to talk about is the level of sophistication and capability. So nation states and organized crime groups, they're going to have the high level of sophistication. They're going to be going under the radar. They're going to have advanced techniques and custom tools. Unskilled actors, obviously these script kiddies, they rely on nothing but tools and have low understanding. Insider threats, it's kind of more broad, right? If someone from accounting is an insider threat, more than likely what you're worried about is them stealing information, not messing up your IT systems, right? Now, if you have a senior dev or software engineer, that you decide to lay off and they run the whole code base, they created the code, you might have an issue there, right? They can put backdoors in, or they can just tank your whole project, right? Especially if you didn't have the proper paperwork in place, like NDAs, non-competes. Anyways, Hacktivists, their capabilities can range from low to high. It just all depends, right? So there's very advanced, sophisticated teams, but they don't always have the time and resources to do highly skilled attacks, even though they may have the brain power, right? It just comes down to resources. And then what they actually do could be low, like website defacement, or it could be a coordinated, like denial of service attack against major organizations. All right, guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transition into going over our quiz. So we're going to go on our Academy's practice exam software, and we're going to answer 6 questions to wrap up this video. All right, let's do it, guys. So I'm on our Academy site here, and we're done with Domain 1. Now moving on to Domain 2. Let's go ahead and take our domain quiz. So if you ever purchase our self-paced course or our live virtual training, any course you take from us, you get access to this practice exam software with over 900 practice exam questions and quizzes for every single lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say the question aloud, and then I'm going to answer it. I suggest you pause once I probably get done reading the question so you can answer it on your own, and then we'll submit it and we'll see if we're right or wrong. So let's do it. So, question 1. Unskilled attackers, often referred to as script kiddies, are known for A. Developing sophisticated malware? Probably not. Conducting targeted attacks against governments? No. Engaging in corporate espionage? Now, they could try to do C&D, but what they're well known for is using pre-existing scripts or tools for attacks. Awesome. You see down here, we got it right. Good job. And there's our explanation. Question 2. What is a primary risk associated with shadow IT in an organization? Improved efficiency and productivity, enhanced data security, potential security vulnerabilities, increased IT budget. So like A, B, and C are like all good things, which shadow IT is not. So the only answer we're going to look at here is C. So we are correct. Potential security vulnerabilities, right? Unauthorized software is unauthorized for a reason. Question 3. In cybersecurity, organized crime groups primarily engage in cyber activities for promoting political agendas, entertainment and personal amusement, spreading social awareness, definitely not, or C, financial gain. Now, I think some organized crime may be for B, but it's for financial gain. That's their one true main purpose, financial gain. Question 4. What primarily motivates hacktivists in conducting their cyber activities? A, financial gain, C, personal amusement, D, corporate espionage, or B, political or social activism. Definitely going to be B with hacktivists, right? It's in the name, an activist. Question 5. Which of the following best describes an insider threat in cybersecurity? So A says external hackers breaching a company's firewall. Definitely not. It says inside. Employees using their access to harm the organization, possibly. C and D talk about script kiddies and organized crime, completely unrelated to insider threats. So we're going to go with B, employees using their access to harm the organization. Now for this last question, I'm just going to answer this incorrectly, and then I want to show you how our exam software works when you get something wrong. So I'm going to click A for what a nation state cyber attack is. So it's not low level, it's advanced state-sponsored hacking activities. You can see here when we get something wrong, it tells us the correct answer, and then it gives us an explanation as well. All right, guys, I want to thank everyone for viewing. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and definitely share with your friends that are studying for Security Plus. And if you're an active duty, National Guard, or Reserve soldier, click that link in the description below. You're entitled, and you have $4,000 to use every single fiscal year to get credentialing and certification assistance. That's right. If you want to come to one of our 5 or 10-day courses where we give you a voucher, lifetime access to our learning management system, you can do it for free on the Army's dime, which is the benefits you earn. So click that link in the description below to find out more. And again, thank you for viewing, and hit that like and hit that subscribe button.